The whole nightmare began, as these family disasters often do, with the veneer of tradition and togetherness. It was December 20th, just 5 days before Christmas, and I was drowning in work at my downtown Seattle office. The rain pattered against the floor-to-ceiling windows, creating a somber backdrop to the holiday season that perfectly matched my mood. My phone buzzed with a text from my younger sister Victoria. Final headcount for Christmas at Aspen. Lodge, you're handling payment. As usual, right? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you.
Bye.
I stared at the message, confusion clouding my thoughts. Was the first I'd heard about Christmas in Aspen. My family typically gathered at my parents', a sprawling waterfront home in Bellevue for the holidays. I quickly typed back, "What Aspen Lodge? Nobody mentioned this to me?" Victoria's response came almost immediately, all dripping with her signature condescension. "Oh my God, Alina. Mom's been planning this for months. We're all flying to Colorado for Christmas at Silver Pine Lodge. Super exclusive. Only the best for the Parkers. Dad said you'd cover it since you're making all that tech money now. Invoices in your email. Gotta run. Dress fitting for the Christmas Eve dinner?" With a growing sense of unease, I opened my email. There it was, an invoice from Silver Pine Lodge addressed to me. 5 nights in their presidential suite and 2 luxury cabins. A private Christmas Eve dinner with a celebrity chef, champagne service, ski passes, spa treatments, and a host. Of other extravagances, a total $18,346.72, due immediately to secure the reservation. The amount wasn't what shocked me most, though it was obscene. It was the dates of the reservation, December 23rd to 28th, and the guest list, Thomas and Rebecca Parker, my parents. Victoria and Jason Morgan, my sister and brother-in-law. Ethan Parker, my younger brother, and my aunt and uncle with their children. My name was nowhere on the list of guests. They were planning an extravagant family Christmas without me, and expected me to pay for it. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. The familiar mixture of hurt, anger, and bitter resignation washed over me. This wasn't the first time I'd been treated as the family's personal ATM while being emotionally sidelined. But it was perhaps the most blatant. To understand the full weight of that moment, you need to know something about the Parker family dynamic. In the perfectly curated Instagram account of our lives, we were the Seattle elite. My father, Thomas, a successful corporate attorney. My mother, Rebecca, a former beauty queen turned charity board fixture. Victoria, the stunning socialite, who'd married into old money. And Ethan, the charming creative one, who'd been failing upward through a series of startups funded by my father. And then there was me, the responsible one, the workaholic, with the boring job who had actually built something substantial. I was the chief operating officer of a cybersecurity firm. I'd helped grow from a small startup to a company now valued at over $200 million. I'd worked 80-hour weeks, sacrificed relationships, and any semblance of work-life balance. And pushed through burnout after burnout to get there. I'd made difficult decisions, weathered crises, and earned every cent of my success. But in the eyes of my family, my achievements were simultaneously expected and invisible. Expected because I'd always been the smart one, the one who got straight A's without anyone checking my homework, who graduated summa cum laude from Stanford while my siblings barely maintained C averages at state schools my father had made donations to. Invisible because my style of success built on competence, persistence, and hard work, rather than charm or beauty, wasn't the kind my family valued or understood. I sat at my desk, staring at the invoice, as memories flooded back. There was my 16th birthday, when my parents forgot entirely because Victoria had a cheerleading competition the same weekend. "You don't mind, sweetheart?" my mother had said afterward. "You're so independent. Victoria really needs our support." Then there was my college graduation from Stanford. My parents arrived late, left early to attend one of Ethan's baseball games, and gave me a $100 gift card as a graduation present. Same month, they bought Victoria a new BMW. She finally graduated after 6 years at State University with a 2 for GPA and communications. When I landed my first executive role at 26, my father's only comment was, "Well, I hope you don't let it go to your head. Real success is about family, not titles." This from the man who had his law firm partnership announcement framed in his office and mentioned it in every conversation with strangers. The pattern had only intensified with money. When I started earning a substantial income, the family dynamic shifted. Suddenly, I was expected to pick up dinner tabs, fund family vacations, and provide loans to my siblings that were never repaid. "You're so blessed, Elena," my mother would say, as if my success had fallen from the sky rather than been earned through years of sacrifice. "It's important to share your blessings with family," and I did. I paid for Victoria's destination wedding in Santorini after my father called to tell me they were a little overextended right now. I covered the down payment on Ethan's condo when he decided real estate was his next passion. I funded my parents' 30th anniversary vow renewal in Tuscany, which cost over $50,000. I never complained, partly out of a desperate hope that financial generosity might finally earn me the emotional recognition I'd always been denied. But this Aspen exclusion, this was different. This wasn't just taking advantage of my success. This was actively pushing me aside while still expecting access to my wallet. The realization settled over me like a cold weight. I was being used, boldly and unapologetically, by the very people who were supposed to love me most. I was still sitting there, the invoice glowing accusingly on my screen, when my boss Nadia knocked on my office door. "Hey, we're ordering from that Thai place you like for the team dinner. You staying?" Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "Team dinner?" I asked, momentarily confused. "The end-of-year strategy session? It's on the calendar?" Nadia gave me a concerned look. "Everything okay? You look like you've seen a ghost?" I closed my email. Family stuff. It's nothing new, but it was new and we both knew it. Nadia had witnessed enough of my family's behavior over the years to understand the dynamic. "Want to talk about it?" she asked, closing the door and taking a seat. I hesitated, then found myself explaining the situation. As the words tumbled out, the absurdity of it all became even clearer. Who excludes a family member from Christmas, while simultaneously expecting them to foot an $18,000 bill? Nadia listened without interruption, her expression growing increasingly incredulous. When I finished, she didn't offer platitudes or easy advice. Nadia wasn't that kind of person. Instead, she asked the question that would change everything. "Elena, if a company was treating you this way, extracting value while providing nothing in return, what would you do?" The answer was immediate. I'd terminate the relationship. So why is it different? Because it's family? Her words hung in the air between us. They were so simple, yet they cracked open something inside me. Why was it different? Why had I accepted treatment from my family that I would never tolerate in any other area of my life? "It's not different," I finally said, my voice stronger than I expected. "It shouldn't be different." Nadia nodded. "Exactly. So what are you going to do about it?" That question followed me home that evening to my downtown apartment. The space was sparse but elegant like me. My best friend Zoe always said. I'd purchased it 2 years ago, another achievement my family had minimized. "Renting makes more sense in this market," my father had commented when I gave them a tour. "But it's cute." I poured myself a glass of wine and stood by the window, watching the Seattle skyline glitter in the darkness. What was I going to do? The old Alina would have paid the bill, swallowed the hurt, and spent Christmas alone while scrolling through Instagram pictures of my family celebrating without me. The thought made me physically ill. My phone buzzed again. Text from my mother. "Victoria mentioned she told you about Aspen. So exciting. We decided you probably couldn't get away from work anyway. You're always so busy. But we're counting on you for the deposit by tomorrow. Love you." The casual cruelty of it stole my breath. We decided you probably couldn't get away from work anyway. No one had asked me. No one had included me in the planning. They had simply decided on my behalf that I wasn't worth including, while my money most certainly was. Something broke inside me then, or perhaps something finally mended. The fog of familial obligation that had clouded my judgment for years suddenly lifted, and I saw with perfect clarity what I needed to do. I opened my laptop and navigated to my banking app. With steady fingers, I began the process that would change everything. I closed the joint credit card I shared with my parents, the one they used for emergencies, that somehow included spa days and golf club memberships. I revoked my father's access to my investment account, which I'd granted years ago when he'd offered to help manage my money he'd only ever made withdrawals, never deposits. I canceled the automatic transfers to Victoria and Ethan's accounts, the loans that were never acknowledged, much less repaid. One by one, I severed the financial ties that had bound me to a one-sided relationship with my family. With each click, I felt lighter, freer. By the time I finished, it was past midnight, but I felt more awake than I had in years. There was one final thing to do. I opened my email and composed a new message to my family. I received the invoice for the Aspen Christmas trip that none of you thought to include me in. I won't be paying it. Additionally, I've closed all shared accounts and ended the financial arrangements that have defined our relationship for too long. I deserve to be valued as a daughter and sister, not as a convenient source of funding. I hope this provides an opportunity for all of us to reassess what family truly means. Merry Christmas, Elena. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then I shut my laptop, finished my wine, and slept better than I had in years. The fallout was nuclear and immediate. My phone exploded with notifications within minutes of my family waking up to my email. The messages ranged from shocked disbelief to rage to manipulative guilt trips. My father: "This is completely inappropriate and irresponsible. Call me immediately." Victoria: "WTF, Elena? The lodge wants payment today. You can't do this to us." Ethan: "Sis, whatever your issue is, don't take it out on all of us. This isn't cool." My mother's message was perhaps the most revealing. "Elena, I don't understand what's gotten into you. Of course we love you, we just didn't think you'd want to come. You're always working. Now you've embarrassed us terribly with the lodge. People like us don't cancel Christmas plans. Call me back right now. People like us." That phrase encapsulated so much about my family's value system: appearance over substance, status over authenticity, the facade of perfection over the messy reality of genuine connection. I didn't call any of them back. Instead, I went to work, walked into Nadia's office, and requested the week off between Christmas and New Year's, my first voluntary vacation. "In 3 years? Approve," she said with a knowing smile. "Any plans?" I surprised myself with my answer. Actually, yes. I'm going to Hawaii, alone, to figure out what I want the next chapter of my life to look like. The calls and texts continued throughout the day, growing increasingly desperate as my family realized I was serious. By evening, my father had resorted to threats. "You're making a huge mistake, Elena. Family relationships can't be restored. Once they're broken, think about what you're throwing away." But that was just it. What exactly was I throwing away? Years of being emotionally sidelined while financially exploited, seat at a table where I was never truly welcome, privilege of funding my own exclusion. I booked a beachfront bungalow at a luxury resort on Maui that night. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was finally spending my money on myself, and it felt revolutionary. The most surprising call came the next day from my Aunt Judith, my mother's sister. Unlike the rest of the family, Aunt Judith had always seen me clearly. Successful surgeon who had carved her own path against my grandparents' wishes, she had been my quiet ally through the years. "Elena," she said when I answered, her voice warm but serious, "I saw the email chain. I want you to know I'm not going to Aspen either." I felt a surge of gratitude, followed quickly by concern. "You don't have to do that, Aunt Judith. This is between me and my parents." "No, it's not," she said firmly. "I've watched how they've treated you for years, and I've been complicit by staying silent. Not anymore. What they're doing is wrong, and I won't pretend otherwise." Her words were a balm to a wound I hadn't fully acknowledged. "Thank you," I whispered. "I thank me," she replied. "I should have said something years ago. Your success threatens them. Your independence, your self-sufficiency, it highlights everything they lack. They use your money because it's the only way they can feel like they still have power over you. Insight was like a key unlocking a door I'd been pushing against for years. My success didn't just make me useful to my family, it made me dangerous. It threatened the hierarchy that placed my father at the top, my mother as his elegant accessory, and my siblings as the favored heirs to a legacy of style over substance. What do I do now? I asked, suddenly feeling adrift. Standing up for myself was one thing, navigating the aftermath was another. You live your life, Aunt Judith said simply. On your terms, you give them the chance to earn their way back into it, if that's what you want. As December 23rd approached the day my family was supposed to arrive in Aspen for their now-canceled luxury Christmas, the tone of their messages changed. Anger gave way to panic, and finally to a grudging realization that I wasn't going to capitulate. My father actually attempted to reason with me, something so unprecedented it momentarily took my breath away. "Alina," he said when I finally took his call, "I understand you're upset about not being included in the Aspen plans. That was thoughtless of us. We can fix that. There's room for you to join us if we book now." The fact that he still didn't get it was almost laughable. "Dad, this isn't about Aspen. This is about years of being treated as an afterthought, while simultaneously being expected to fund the family's lifestyle. I'm not interested in buying my way into Christmas this year." There was a long silence. On the other end of the line, when he spoke again, his voice had an unfamiliar quality, uncertainty. "What do you want then?" It was such a simple question, but no one in my family had ever asked it of me before. What did I want? Not what could I provide or what role could I fill, but what did I, Alina Parker, actually want? I want to be valued for who I am, not what I can give you, I said finally. I want relationships based on mutual respect, not one-sided exploitation. I want to be included because you want me there, not because you need my credit card. Another silence, this one longer and heavier. Then, to my shock, my father's voice broke. "I don't know how to do that, Alina. I don't know how to be that kind of father." His honesty, perhaps the first genuine moment between us in years, caught me off guard. Part of me wanted to comfort him, to fall back into the familiar pattern of managing my family's emotions, but I held firm. "And that's where we start, Dad, with honesty. The Aspen trip isn't happening, not on my dime. What happens next is up to all of you." I ended the call feeling both drained and strangely energized. For the first time in my adult life, I had set a boundary with my family and held it. The earth hadn't stopped spinning. I hadn't burst into flames. Instead, I felt something unfamiliar stirring in my chest. The investigation into my family's financial dependence on me began almost by accident. The day after my conversation with my father, I received a call from James Chen, my financial advisor. His timing was eerie, almost as if he'd sensed the seismic shift in my relationship with money. "Alina, I'm reviewing year-end positions for all my clients. And I noticed some patterns in your accounts I wanted to discuss," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "What kind of patterns?" I asked, though I already had a sinking feeling I knew. "Well, there have been significant regular outflows to accounts belonging to your family members. Over the past 3 years, these transfers amount to just over $420,000, not including the joint credit card expenses or the one-time large transfers for special events." The number hit me like a physical blow. $420,000, nearly $500,000 of my hard-earned money gone to fund my family's lifestyle. Money that could have been invested or used to start my own company or simply enjoyed as the fruits of my labor. "Can you break that down for me, James?" I asked, my voice steady, despite the anger bubbling beneath the surface. What followed was a methodical dissection of my family's financial parasitism. Monthly transfers to Victoria, $3,000, ostensibly. For helping with the mortgage on a house she and her husband could have easily afforded if they didn't insist on living in the most exclusive neighborhood in Seattle. Regular payments to Ethan, $2,500. Originally to get him through a tight spot that had somehow lasted for 2 years. My parents' credit card, which I had foolishly added to my account. An average of $6,000 per month in charges ranging from country club fees to luxury shopping sprees. "There's also a pattern of large one-time expenses," James continued. A $32,000 payment to a jewelry store last year, was that a planned expense? I remembered it well. My mother had called, bubbling with excitement about a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to purchase an antique sapphire necklace. That would be an investment, really. I had transferred the money without question. I had never seen her wear the necklace, no, I said quietly. It wasn't planned. By the end of the call, the full picture was painfully clear. My family hadn't just been occasionally borrowing from me, they had integrated my income into their financial planning. They were living lifestyles they couldn't afford, with me as their silent, compliant banker. Alina, James said gently before we hung up. As your financial advisor, I feel compelled to point out that this level of financial support is significantly impacting your long-term goals. The retirement timeline and the startup capital you mentioned wanting to save, these aren't compatible. With the current outflow to your family, it was a professional observation delivered without judgment. But it crystallized something I had been avoiding facing. My family's financial dependence wasn't just emotionally unhealthy, it was actively preventing me from pursuing my own dreams. That night, I pulled out a notebook and began documenting everything. Every loan that was never repaid, every vacation I had funded, every emergency that required my financial intervention. I wasn't just gathering evidence, I was reclaiming my narrative. This wasn't normal generosity, this was exploitation, and I had been a willing participant. The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I called in sick to work. Not for a genuine illness, but to focus on my own well-being. I spent the day in a coffee shop with my laptop, systematically untangling my financial life from my family's. I set up new accounts, changed passwords, and drafted formal letters documenting the loans I had provided. With no expectation of repayment, but with a clear statement that no further funds would be forthcoming, it was in this coffee shop that I ran into Michael Torres, a former colleague who had left our company to start his own business. He spotted me first, approaching with a warm smile. Alina Parker, workaholic extraordinaire, in a coffee shop at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday. The world must be ending, he teased, sliding into the chair across from me. Despite everything, I found myself smiling back. Michael had always been easy to talk to, direct, honest, and refreshingly free of the corporate politics that infected so many of our colleagues. Taking a personal day, I explained, closing my laptop. Long overdue. Everything okay? He asked, his expression shifting to concern. I hesitated. I had always kept my family issues private, compartmentalized away from my professional life. But something about Michael's genuine interest, combined with the emotional upheaval of the past few days, loosened my tongue. Family drama, I said with a sigh. I'm cutting them off financially after years of being treated. It's like their personal bank while being emotionally sidelined. It's complicated. I expected polite discomfort or perhaps a quick change of subject. Instead, Michael nodded with unexpected understanding. I've been there, he said quietly. Different details, same dynamic. My brother and his wife lived in our rental property for 3 years without paying a dime. While constantly criticizing how I ran the family business, it nearly broke me financially and emotionally. His candor created a space for mine. Before I knew it, I was telling him everything. The Aspen Christmas betrayal. The years of financial exploitation, the painful realization of just how much money had flowed out of my accounts. The worst part, I concluded, is that I let it happen. I was so desperate for their approval, their love, that I kept paying and paying, hoping that eventually it would be enough. That I would be enough. Michael's response was gentle, but firm. Alina, people will treat you how you allow them to treat you. You've been allowing this treatment because somewhere along the way, you decided you deserved it. You don't. His words struck a chord so deep, I felt it reverberate through my chest. He was right. Beneath all the complexity of family dynamics and emotional manipulation, there was a simple truth. I had participated in my own exploitation because I didn't believe I deserved better. How did you fix it? I asked. With your brother. Michael's smile was tinged with sadness. I stopped enabling him. Told him he could either start paying rent or move out. He chose to move out, and he didn't speak to me for almost a year. My heart sank. And now we have a relationship that's based on reality, not fantasy. It's smaller, less intense, but it's real. He respects boundaries because I enforce them. We'll never be best friends, but we're brothers who can sit at the same table without resentment poisoning the air. As our conversation continued, Michael shared something that would become my mantra in the difficult days ahead. The people who get angry when you set boundaries are the ones who benefited from you having none. By the time we parted ways, exchanging phone numbers with a promise to stay in touch, I felt a new resolve hardening within me. This wasn't just about one Christmas in Aspen. This was about reclaiming my worth, my dignity, and yes, my money. That evening, my phone rang with a call from Victoria. Almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. Her voice was tearful, lacking the entitled edge I'd grown accustomed to. "Elena, what are we supposed to do? The lodge is demanding payment, and Dad says he can't cover it. Christmas is ruined, and it's all because you're having some kind of breakdown." The old Elena would have felt guilty, would have scrambled to fix the situation. The new Elena felt only a calm certainty. "This isn't a breakdown, Victoria. It's a breakthrough. Christmas isn't ruined, it's just not going to be the extravagant affair you planned with my money. You have options? Scale back. Choose a more affordable celebration. Actually pay for it yourselves." "But we can't afford Silver Pine Lodge," she wailed. "Exactly," I replied. "Neither can I. The difference is, I know my financial limits and live within them. It's time you all learn to do the same." Victoria's tearful manipulation turned quickly to anger. "You've always been so bitter and jealous of me. Just because you have no life beyond work and no one to spend Christmas with, you want to ruin it for the rest of us?" Her words were designed to wound, to hit all my insecurities about being the family outsider. In the past, they would have worked. I would have transferred the money just to prove I wasn't the bitter, lonely workaholic she described. Instead, I felt a strange sense of peace. "Victoria, I'm spending Christmas exactly how I want to in Hawaii, at a beautiful resort, investing in my own happiness for once. I'm not bitter. I'm not jealous. I'm just done bankrolling a family that doesn't appreciate me. I hope you figure out your Christmas plans. Goodbye." I hung up before she could respond, feeling lighter than I had in years. The next morning brought an unexpected email from Ethan, unlike Victoria's emotional manipulation or my father's authoritarian demands. Ethan's approach was more subtle, and in some ways more insidious. "Sis," he wrote, "I get that you're upset about the Aspen thing. It was thoughtless, and I should have spoken up when I realized you weren't included. That's on me. But I'm in a real bind with the startup right now. We're this close to securing major funding, but I need to keep up appearances until the deal closes. Could you just float me one more month of support? I swear it's the last time I'll ask. I'll pay you back with interest when we close this round." It was the same promise he'd been making for years, dressed up in a veneer of accountability. I could almost hear my father's voice coaching him on the wording. Acknowledge the mistake, but make it small. Focus on the immediate need. Promise. Future repayment appealed to her sense of family loyalty and her desire to see you succeed. I drafted and redrafted my response several times, trying to find the balance between firmness and cruelty. In the end, I kept it simple. "Ethan, I believe in your intelligence and your potential. I always have, but continuing to fund your lifestyle while you chase deal after deal isn't helping either of us. It's enabling a pattern that keeps you dependent and keeps me resentful. I'm not transferring any more money. If your business is viable, find investors who aren't related to you. It's not. Maybe it's time to consider other paths. Either way, I'm here to support you emotionally, but my wallet is closed." His response was swift and ugly, all pretense of understanding vanishing. Wow, guess all those team-building seminars didn't teach you about actual loyalty? You know what? Keep your money. I don't need it. Some sister you turned out to be? Reading his words, I felt a pang of sadness, but no regret. The truth was, Ethan had never launched a successful business because he'd never had to. Between my father's initial funding and my ongoing support, he'd been insulated from the harsh realities of entrepreneurship, the necessity of creating genuine value, of learning from failure, of true persistence in the face of setbacks. Midweek, With Christmas rapidly approaching, a new dynamic emerged. My mother, always the family diplomat, attempted a different approach. She invited me to lunch at her favorite upscale restaurant, undoubtedly expecting me to pay, as I always had. "Let's meet at the Pinnacle at noon," her text read. "We need to talk, mother to daughter," suggested a coffee shop instead. When she balked, "That place is so casual, Alina," I stood firm. Either we met on neutral, affordable ground, or we didn't meet at all. She arrived at the coffee shop looking like a queen, forced to mingle with commoners, her designer handbag and perfectly coiffed hair at odds with the relaxed atmosphere. She didn't hug me, just slid into the chair across from me with a tight smile. "You've certainly stirred up a hornet's nest," she began, declining my offer to buy her a coffee. "Your father is beside himself. Victoria is inconsolable, and Ethan—" "Well, Ethan feels deeply betrayed. And you, Mom?" I asked quietly. "How do you feel?" She seemed startled by the question, as if her own feelings were irrelevant to the discussion. At first, the questions felt almost impossible to answer. I had spent so long defining myself through others' eyes that I barely knew what I wanted. What brought me authentic joy rather than the fleeting satisfaction of external approval? Slowly, in the quiet space of that beach, answers began to emerge. Small realizations at first. I loved being near water. I found peace in the early morning hours. I derived deep satisfaction from mentoring younger women in business. I had always wanted to learn photography, but had dismissed it as impractical. Midway through my stay, I rented a car and drove around the island, stopping whenever something caught my eye. I bought a decent camera at a shop in Lahaina and spent hours capturing the dramatic landscapes, the play of light on water, the vibrant local flowers. The focus required, the immersion in the present moment, was healing in a way I hadn't anticipated. That evening, reviewing my amateur photos in my bungalow, I received a text from Aunt Judith. "Merry Christmas Eve, Alina. Thinking of you and hoping you're finding peace." I had been so absorbed in my personal journey that I'd almost forgotten. The date tomorrow was Christmas, the day my family had planned to be enjoying their luxury Aspen experience at my expense. Curious, I checked social media to see what alternative plans they had made. Victoria had posted a sulky selfie captioned, "When Christmas gets canceled because family loyalty is dead. #disappointed, #family drama." The comments were filled with vague, supportive platitudes from her friends, none of whom knew the real story. Ethan hadn't posted anything, but he was tagged in photos at a friend's apartment, surrounded by beer bottles and looking distinctly non-festive. My parents were conspicuously silent online, which was unusual for my mother, who typically documented every holiday with carefully curated photos designed to showcase the Parker family's perfect life. I was surprised to find that their evident displeasure didn't trigger my usual guilt or anxiety. Instead, I felt a calm certainty that I had done the right thing, not just for my bank account, but for my soul. I sent a quick reply to Aunt Judith. "Merry Christmas Eve to you too. I'm finding more than peace. I'm finding myself. How are you spending the holiday?" Her response came quickly. "Small dinner with friends. First Christmas, not dominated by your mother's need for perfection in 35 years. It's liberating." I smiled, appreciating her honesty and the subtle validation it offered. Then, inspired by our exchange, I did something I'd never done before. I posted a sunset photo I'd taken that day with a simple caption. "Finding joy in a Christmas that's rich in peace rather than pretense. Grateful for this moment of beauty and self-discovery." It wasn't meant as a dig at my family, though they would undoubtedly interpret it that way. It was a declaration of independence, a public acknowledgement of my new path. The responses were immediate and surprising. Colleagues I hadn't spoken to outside of work contexts sent warm messages. Old friends I'd lost touch with during my workaholic years reached out. Even Nadia commented, "This might be the first time I've ever seen you post something that wasn't work-related. The sunset is beautiful, but your happiness is even more gorgeous. Proud of you, E." Among the stream of notifications, one message stood out, a private message from Michael. "Now that's what Christmas should look like. Peace suits you, Alina. I found myself smiling as I typed back. It's starting to feel like it fits. Christmas Day dawned with perfect Hawaiian sunshine. I attended a casual breakfast celebration at the resort, then spent the morning on a small group snorkeling excursion, marveling at the vibrant underwater world just offshore. The afternoon brought a surprising invitation from Leilani. Some friends are having a small potluck on the beach. Very casual, very local. You're welcome to join if you'd like a taste of island-style Christmas. It got accepted without hesitation. Stopping at a local shop to buy a bottle of wine and fresh tropical fruit as my contribution. The gathering was everything my family's celebrations had never been relaxed. Felt genuine, centered on connection rather than impression. Leilani's friends were a diverse group, from native Hawaiians to transplants like her, each with their own story of finding their way to this island and the life they truly wanted. Under the stars, with the sound of ukulele music and laughter surrounding me, I experienced a profound realization. This was what I had been seeking all along. Not approval, not status, but authentic connection. The freedom to be fully myself, flaws, strengths, quirks, and all, and to be accepted for exactly who I was, not what I could provide. As the evening wound down, Leilani walked me back to my bungalow. You seem different tonight, she observed. More present, less guarded. I feel different, I admitted. Like I'm finally allowing myself to exist without apology. She smiled. That's the real gift of doing this work. Discovering that you are always enough, exactly as you are. The people who couldn't see that were missing the most beautiful parts of you. Back in my bungalow, I found a series of missed calls and messages from my family. My mother had left a voicemail, her voice tight with what sounded like forced. Cheer, Merry Christmas, Alina. We're having a small gathering at home. Your father wants to speak with you. Call when you can. My father's message was more direct. Alina, it's Christmas. Families should be together, even when there are disagreements. Call us back. Victoria had sent a series of increasingly wine-fueled texts, ranging from hope you're happy all alone on Christmas to miss you sis, why are you being so mean, to finally maybe you're right about some stuff, call me. Ethan's lone text was the most surprising. Took a job today. Actual W-2 employment. Software sales. Start January 2nd. Thought you should know. Reading their messages, I felt a complex mixture of emotions. Sadness for the broken relationships. Hope for possible healing. But most powerfully, a sense of peace with my decision to prioritize my own well-being. I wasn't all alone as Victoria had assumed. I was surrounded by genuine connection, even among people I'd just met. I'm finally learning to be good company for myself. I decided to respond the next day, after I'd had time to process. That night I slept more deeply than I had in years, without the weight of family expectations or looming work deadlines intruding on my dreams. The remainder of my Hawaiian retreat passed in a blur of small, meaningful experiences. Photography workshop from a local artist who praised my natural eye for composition. Tried surfing and failed spectacularly, but laughed more than I had in years. I spent an afternoon volunteering at a beach cleanup, working alongside locals who cared deeply about preserving their island's beauty. Each day, I checked in with Leilani for our morning yoga session, and each day her questions pushed me to greater clarity about what I truly wanted from my life. If you could redesign your work life from scratch, she asked one morning, what would it look like? I considered the question carefully. I love the strategic elements of my job, solving complex problems, mentoring younger team members, seeing the big picture. But I hate the politics, the endless meetings. It's the expectation to be available 24/7. So what's stopping you from creating a role that emphasizes what you love and minimizes what you don't? I've never thought I had that option, I admitted. The expectation has always been total dedication, total availability. Whose expectation? She pressed gently. Yours or others? The question stopped me short. Was it really my company demanding this all-consuming commitment? Or was it my own internalized belief that my value came from martyring myself to work? Was I recreating my family dynamic in my professional life, overgiving, overperforming, desperately seeking approval through sacrifice? I said slowly, that I've been using work the same way I used money with my family, as a substitute for setting actual boundaries, for asking for what I really need. Leilani nodded. Hey, and how has that strategy worked for you so far? I laughed, despite myself, about as well as it did with my family. Then perhaps it's time for a new approach, she suggested. One that honors your gifts without sacrificing your well-being. Our conversation planted a seed that would grow into one of the most significant decisions of my professional life. But that would come later, after I returned to Seattle and the reality of rebuilding my life on new, healthier terms. On my last day in Hawaii, I finally responded to my family's messages. To my mother, I wrote, "Thank you for reaching out. I hope your Christmas was meaningful. I'm doing well and finding clarity about what I want from our relationship going forward. I'm open to talking when I return, but only if we can have an honest conversation about the patterns that led us here." To my father, my message was more direct. "I understand your belief that families should be together on holidays. I share that value. But togetherness should come from genuine desire for each other's company, not obligation or financial utility. I'm ready to build a healthier relationship when you are." To Victoria, I simply wrote, "I'm not alone, and I'm not being mean. I'm establishing boundaries that should have been in place years ago. I love you, but that love can't come at the expense of my self-respect anymore." To Ethan, I sent congratulations on the new job. "That's fantastic news, Ethan. A fresh start can be exactly what we need sometimes. I'm proud of you for taking this step." The responses trickled in throughout the day, cautious, subdued, but notably lacking the entitled anger of their earlier communications. Something had shifted in our family dynamic, even from a distance of thousands of miles. The ground, rules were changing, and they were beginning to realize it. That evening, as I watched my final Hawaiian sunset, I received an unexpected call from Aunt Judith. "I wanted to check in before you head back to the mainland," she said warmly. "How are you feeling about returning to real life?" "Nervous," I admitted, "but stronger, clearer. It's easier to be brave in paradise, away from all the triggers and patterns. That's why retreats like yours are so valuable," she said. "They give us the space to hear our own voice without the usual noise. But the real work happens when we return, when we have to integrate our insights into daily life." "Any advice for that part?" I asked. "Remember that transformation isn't linear," she said thoughtfully. "There will be days when you slip back into old patterns, when the guilt feels overwhelming, when saying no feels impossible. That doesn't mean you've failed. It just means you're human, rewiring decades of conditioning." Her words were exactly what I needed to hear. Permission to be imperfect in my journey, to stumble without abandoning the path entirely. "There's something else you should know," she continued, her tone shifting slightly. "Your mother called me yesterday." I tensed, and she's processing in her own way. She mentioned that they downsized Christmas quite dramatically, dinner at home, modest gifts. Your father apparently had a bit of a meltdown about it, but she stood firm. "That doesn't sound like Mom at all," I said, genuinely surprised. "People can surprise us when they have to," Aunt Judith replied. "I'm not saying everything's fixed, far from it. But the earthquake you caused has shifted the landscape. Things that were buried are coming to the surface. It's painful, but necessary." After we hung up, I sat on my deck watching the stars emerge over the Pacific. Tomorrow I would return to Seattle, to work, to the reality of my fractured family relationships. But I wouldn't be returning the same person who had fled there a week ago. I had come to Hawaii seeking escape, but what I had found was far more valuable, the beginning of liberation from patterns that had imprisoned me for years. I had found my voice, my boundaries, and most importantly, a growing belief in my intrinsic worth, separate from what I could do for others. As I packed my bags that night, I placed my new camera carefully among my clothes. It would serve as a tangible reminder of this turning point, this moment when I had finally begun to focus on capturing my own life rather than financing everyone else's. The journey ahead would not be easy. Old patterns die hard, and my family's expectations wouldn't disappear overnight. But for perhaps the first time in my adult life, I was facing the future on my terms, not as the reliable, Responsible Alina, who existed to solve everyone else's problems, but as a woman with needs, desires, and boundaries of her own. In the quiet of that tropical night, I made a promise to myself. I would no longer shrink to make others comfortable. I would no longer purchase love at the expense of respect. I would build a life rich in genuine connection rather than expensive obligation. The real work was just beginning, but so was the real joy. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out, and don't forget to subscribe. And turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.